everybody to our latest episode of the She Speaks series from Let Her Speak. I am the founder of Let Her Speak, Catherine Porth, and I'm really excited today. This is our very first interview with someone outside the United States, just north of us in Montreal, Canada. I have Dayna with me, who is the founder of Frank. And it is an incredible community, an incredible business that I'm so excited for you all to hear about. So thank you so much for being with us today, Dayna.
Thank you. I'm really excited to represent Montreal and Canada. It's a big, weight to carry, but I'm up for the task.
I think you are going to represent Canada wonderfully. I'd say most of us have very high opinions of Canada in general anyways. So I would love for you to first start off with talking a little bit about your story of how you arrived at the founding of Frank.
Absolutely. So my journey towards Frank actually began with an event for my other business. So I am an entrepreneur at heart, and I have two businesses. One is Frank, which I'll tell you a little bit about, but the other one is called Suite 203 Communications, and it is a brand strategy firm. And over the past couple of years, I was traveling for that business, giving presentations on the topic of marketing. And I found myself out at a conference in California. And it was kind of like a female entrepreneurship, like thousands of women coming together for this purpose of learning and expanding their knowledge and their businesses. And I was there for the whole week, so I really wanted to take advantage of my time. So I booked myself solid and made thousands of appointments, not quite, with different women, different industries, different backgrounds, and I had a chance to meet them all. And what I realized is that they were so willing to be open and honest and really quite vulnerable about their challenges that they were facing, both in the workplace and personally. And in return, they were met with empathy and best practice advice, a lot of support and empowerment. And I really felt connected to that experience. So when I got home, it was on my mind, and I kept thinking, how do I make this sustainable? Because, we invest as professionals, as entrepreneurs, we invest, as much as we can in our self-growth and learning, but it's not something that you're running to a conference, on a monthly basis. And I was like, how do I really keep this going? And for me, I was a solo entrepreneur in my marketing business, and I often felt like I missed that sounding board and that chance to really brainstorm collectively and bounce ideas. And I'm a talker, and I like to sort of hash things out. And you can't really do that so much when you're, by yourself in your office. So I started doing a lot of research and talking to a lot of my peers and asking other women, like, what are you missing? What do you really need? What are you craving? And the answers definitely had a similar thread that ran through them about connectivity. And like I said, I was doing a lot of research, and I looked at different models for networking groups, and different leadership training programs and courses. And I sort of pulled together what I thought was the best of each one. And I have a close friend, her name is Vienna Bloom, and she's an experiential designer. She's absolutely fantastic. And we decided to collaborate to co-design a program that would really emphasize the skills that we felt were missing and needed in women's career in order for them to achieve success. And, Frank was born from there.
That's incredible. So what were some of the things that you pulled in that you felt like were the foundation for women to succeed?
Absolutely. We looked really closely at the EO organization, which is the Entrepreneur Organization. And one thing that I really loved about it was this model of a forum. And the forum is when the members kind of lock themselves in a room together for a few hours at a shot, and they hash out everybody's learnings and they hash out all the problems and they, you know, bring their own expertise to the table. And I thought that was really brilliant. And we've seen a lot of success from organizations who use this similar model. It's called CoDev. But in order to join a network such as EO, you need to be a president of a certain type of industry with a certain amount of revenue. And there was so much criteria that had to be completed, or boxes that had to be checked off, that it was extremely limiting to women. And I know here locally in Montreal, the chapter only has about 10% female members. And I saw that as a huge red flag. I said, why aren't women having access to these amazing tools? And, you know, on the flip side, I was looking at other female empowerment type groups, and a lot of them were very, I almost say like cupcake. It was very sweet and, you know, very cheerleader, you know, rah, rah, you could do it kind of thing. And I think, you know, that's great. And some people definitely need that. But I wanted to create something that had a little bit more depth and that was a lot more strategic. So in Frank, the way we work is we share feedback based on our own experiences and our own learnings. So very rarely do we ever sort of give advice. Instead, we really speak from the I. So it means saying something like, you know, I was in a similar situation and these were the learnings, these were the outcomes. This is what I would do differently next time. And then you sort of give it as a gift to that person and let them pull out whatever they need.
I like that. Instead of saying you should be doing this, you
nobody likes to be told.
No, nobody does. You basically guarantee that they're going to stop. You're probably going to stop listening to what that person has to say. And I love your approach to this, because it's something I also very, very much appreciate and agree with when I was building out what I felt like Let Her Speak should be. And Let Her Speak was serendipitous. I had no intention of starting something. And then I hit a nerve and it just kept going. But we were talking, I was actually talking with a woman who's in our community the other day about the cupcake philosophy around a lot of women's organizations. That is the, no matter what, I'm a cheerleader, instead of, no, there's strategic things that a solopreneur really needs somebody to sit down and be real with them about, of these are strategic, tactical things that I would have done differently. And so I really love that approach, because I truly do believe that that's one of the foundations of growth for yourself professionally and personally, is being able to look at those critiques and be able to grow yourself from that. Because when you look at most male dominant organizations like EO and others, that is very much what most of them do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important that, you know, when you're getting feedback from people, especially when they're in your close network. So for example, you may go to your spouse or a best friend or a family member for advice or, you know, input on whatever challenge you're facing. I find it is really, really circular. You always have the same conversations with the same questions and the same outcomes. It's really hard to move out of that little bubble. So at Frank, we curate each group. We work in small groups of about 12 to 14 women that are handpicked to come together and create our own sort of personal advisory board. And we make sure that their backgrounds are completely diverse. So they come from different industries, different job titles. They're all seasoned professionals or entrepreneurs. They all have at least 10 years of experience behind them. So they have a lot to share. But you know, they really can tackle problems from other best practices and other angles and different points of view than you're probably used to.
So I know one thing you mentioned is that you have women from not just Canada, but from other parts of the country. So could you talk a little bit about how you've evolved your program to allow for women across different areas of the world to be able to come together?
It's kind of I guess it's a common story these days. When we launched Frank in the last day of January, actually, this past year, 2020, we started as a small in-person group. And about 4 sessions in, the pandemic hit. And we had to go back to the drawing board and reimagine what the program would look like and really create a format that would allow for trust building and engagement and connection between our women. So by doing that, we also became borderless because we took everything virtually, and all of the sort of buzz that we had going and requests that we had from women from the outside, we were now able to serve them. So we now have members across Canada, the US, as well as the UK.
And what are some of the things that you've learned having to transition to a virtual platform about how women and people in your community connect best?
That's a great question. I think it's really about authenticity. I think, we always say you get what you give to the group. And I think that's really true in all aspects of life. But we see that as soon as one person sort of puts themselves in a vulnerable situation or, puts themselves out there and is willing to be candid, the barriers sort of break down and trust starts to be built. And that really allows for women, to open up and be empathetic and, really be caring. And it's this really interesting balance, because in some ways our group is extremely strategic, and in the other side, it's extremely nurturing. And I think it's that balance that makes it work.
That's definitely a skill set that I have found most women are able to jump back and forth between. We can be extremely tactical, strategic, just thinking about the numbers or the strategy, whatever that is. But at the same time, we can immediately switch and be the nurturing type of people that we are naturally. Do you have any examples or stories that you're able to share about a really beautiful, vulnerable moment that really broke apart and brought the women together?
I can definitely speak to it in broad terms. We do guarantee confidentiality within our group. So without going into too many details, we talk about 3 areas within our conversations at Frank. So the first one is business. The second one is personal, and the third one is family. And it's really important for us to differentiate between family and personal, because often women tend to lump them together, and they feel like they're defined by their children or their spouse or, their home life. But we really see them as separate issues or separate topics. And what I've noticed is that a lot of the business issues stem from a personal root. And, I think that's one of the amazing qualities that makes women such good leaders, is because we're able to tap into sort of that emotional connection to our challenges. And we try to think with a global perspective about it. And that allows us to sort of nurture other people and help our peers grow, help our employees level up and, promote themselves throughout the workplace.
I love that. I agree. I absolutely agree. And what led you to decide those are the 3 areas? Was it just personal or experience, or was it that you did some research and determined these were the 3 areas?
I really do believe in a holistic approach to wellness. And I think that stems over into Frank. I think if you're only focusing on, business and strategy, that's great. Some people need to do that, but you can get that from an online course or a business webinar. If you want, pointers and facts and just bang, 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 that's already out there. But we wanted something that really, connected to these women. And I think that's because it's an important piece of the puzzle. And without it, I don't think you can really grow or get past some of your challenges. For example, a lot of the women talk about different degrees of imposter syndrome. So it's all about confidence. So it's not really about, how do I make that big presentation and get everyone around the table sold on my ideas? It's how do I feel about it? And how do I build myself up to recognize that I'm the best person to be making this pitch or, this call in my company?
Yeah, and one thing we talk about a lot too is change and development and growth happens from the inside out. So no matter what external force you try to find to get yourself to be, the strongest presenter ever, if internally you don't believe it yourself, there's nothing externally that you can ever do to truly be what you want to be. You have to change first the inside. And the imposter syndrome, that's something that we talk about a lot too. We talk about the different archetypes of it and how it can manifest in different ways when it's coming up. And I guess, have you, I'm assuming that most of us have, but have you struggled with imposter syndrome and maybe even imposter syndrome starting this new venture?
Absolutely. In any new business venture, there's a lot of doubt that surrounds it. Are people going to like this? Are they going to like me? Am I on the right path? What is the best setup? There's always uncertainty. And I think as an entrepreneur, it's something that you have to get used to. Because at the end of the day, you really only have yourself to rely on. So there are a lot of questions. So for me personally, surrounding myself with these very inspiring women has definitely helped. I also have an advisory board, and it's something I highly recommend to all women. It's a cross section of some of my smartest girlfriends. We come together quarterly to talk about the business and, how do we scale it? How do we move it forward? We troubleshoot. So essentially I practice what I preach with my own advisory board Frank group on a regular basis. And without their support, I don't think I would have gotten where I am today.
Are there, any other things besides, yes, the inner circle is absolutely paramount. I agree. Are there any other tactics that have worked personally for you to work through those thoughts that are usually probably creeping in that are linked to imposter syndrome?
I try to remind myself that failure is really part of success. So there's nothing so bad that can happen that won't contribute one day to the overall picture of my legacy or my achievements.
And so over the last year, I'm sure there's been a steep learning curve, not only with a pandemic, but with starting something brand new in a pandemic and having to completely rewrite everything. So what were some of the failures that you celebrate now that have led to where you're at now with Frank?
Well, one example is when we started, we relied on a different facilitation method. We chose a program called CODEV, and it was supposed to be done every single session. That was our initial thoughts on how Frank was going to roll out. But because we went virtual, we got to play and experiment with all these different dynamic exercises and methods, and it really enriched the program. So if we would have continued, I don't know if we would have had the same success that we did with our initial plan. So things evolve and things change, but also nothing is set in stone. So I kind of feel that any time I may take a misstep, I can always just backtrack a little bit.
Has there been anything that's really surprised you from how things evolved with Frank?
I think the biggest surprise for me was probably realizing that no matter what industry, whether you're a more straight-laced type of professional in banking or in like a lawyer or like a very straight-laced type of profile to the creative, our challenges are really similar.
I agree. That was one thing that I found too, was that a lot of times we think that we have to belong to certain silos based off of like our industry, or whether we're a mom or not a mom, or, whether we're a part of, certain communities. And really it's a hindrance for us to feel like we have to stick to these silos, when really it's, you start, and I think what your point was about vulnerability really helps solidify that, of no, if we peek our head out of our own silos and start looking at a woman that from the outside externally seems like completely opposite of me, like, she's a lawyer and she has kids, and she is working on also getting her doctorate now, and I'm a creative maker that lives alone with my dog, and I love what I do, and I love making things, and I don't have plans for starting a family, but yet there's so many more commonalities amongst us. And sometimes it feels like the way organizations are around women's communities, it's almost like it keeps us from realizing that there's so much more that keeps us together than what separates us from each other.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're always encouraged to join like our industry association and like really like stick to the pack sort of, idea. But there is such great benefit to branching out and just, learning about a different industry and learning how they do things and why they do things. And, you can pull so much from other people. And I think that's another really interesting part about this female networking, right? Like, even if someone does seem very opposite to you in terms of goals or, experiences, there's so much you can draw upon. And, in our groups, certain exercises allows for an individual to sort of present their case and share their challenge and garner feedback. And it's great because you get like all these fresh perspectives. And by the end of it, you usually have an idea about what next steps you need to take. But for me, I find the most gratifying part is being one of the coaches, so to speak, and offering feedback, because you really realize that through other people's journeys and stories, there's so much of yourself in it. And it's so easy to make and draw parallels to what you've either are going through or have gone through, or perhaps will be going through in the next weeks, months, years.
Have you had to implement any sort of strategy, like when you're bringing these cohorts of women together for the first time and you're selecting them because they're so different from each other, is there a certain type of strategy to essentially break the ice, to start bringing out those vulnerability points so that women can start seeing the common threads amongst them?
Yes, we don't just like throw them into the like, okay, share everything, that would be very startling, I think. We always start with like a welcome cocktail, right? It's more social. We do some games to get to know each other, and we just sort of get to know the person first, and then we sort of peel back the layers as we go.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, you kind of need bonding over drinks or food is usually always a good starting point.
Oh, yes.
So what is your vision then for, I mean, you talked about scaling a little bit, but what is your vision for, 5 years, 10 years, even in the next 12 months of where you want to take Frank?
Well, in the short term, what I'd like to do is introduce the program to more women. I think it's something that is needed and typically well received. Our women who've been in our program really love it. We have actually 70% of our initial members have continued on with us for second rounds because they really feel like it's filling a need in their life, which is fantastic. So I just want to, this year is all about getting the word out there and connecting with as many women as we possibly can.
Okay. So where do you see it going, like 5 years from now?
Oh, well, I'd like to, I would like to sort of keep developing our groups and creating, this sense of community. So we have these little cohorts, as I mentioned, of 12 to 14 women who are, always together with the same two facilitators within their group. But we try to introduce elements into the program, such as workshops, where they all come together. So what I'd like to see in the future is that that sense of community is really well established, and there's so much rich information and talent and opportunities that are being shared amongst them that it sort of becomes like the core of Frank.
Okay. And could you talk through then a little bit of what that journey looks like for a woman who maybe just found out about you from watching this? And what that journey would look like for them to be a part of a Frank cohort group.
Yeah, sure. So we have a website. It's frank-talk.com. And we invite women to apply to be part of our cohorts. When we are launching a new cohort, such as in the spring, you can apply directly for a specific day and time. In between sessions, we have something which is called ongoing application, and that allows them just to sort of share a little bit about what they hope to get out of it, some of their challenges, some of their goals with us, so that when I am building the cohorts, I already have in mind the types of personalities and profiles that we have to work with.
Okay. What are some of the things that you look at? You talked a little bit about like industry and experience and things like that. So yeah, what are the different points that you're matching women together on?
Right. So we look at the sort of where they're at in their career. So they typically have a decade of experience behind them. I don't look at titles because I think it's so variable depending on your industry and the type of company you work for. You can be, a VP in one and a manager in another and still have the same responsibilities. But we do look for, different experiences outside of work as well. So volunteer experience, board experience, travel experience. I try to look at the whole person and not just, what they are on paper. But for me, what really always seals the deal is the interviews. So I try to speak to all of the women that apply to really get a sense of what they hope to get out of it so that I can best curate the groups.
Okay. Oh, I love that you interview.
Yes, and it's not like a judgy interview where I'm like grilling them and like it doesn't feel like that at all. It's really just a conversation to sort of assess where they are and ensure that they have the growth mindset that we really value at Frank, and to of course answer their questions. And for me, it's great because I get to know all of the members personally.
Yeah, and I think also for some women feel like they're not the greatest at communicating who they are and what they're all about on paper too. So it really gives them an opportunity for their personality to really shine through beyond what they're writing down.
Exactly.
Are there anything, and I'm asking this because this is something that I think I knew, but I didn't know that it would be that much of an impact on me by starting a women's organization, is the amount of growth and change that I've gone through since starting it. So I'm assuming the same has probably been for you as well.
Yeah, my community has like blown me away. I am always, so inspired and so energized by them. And when I during a session, if I see something click, you can sort of read it on their face, and it's just amazing. Like I feel so good that I've actually had a small role helping them in some way just by shaping the program. It's extremely gratifying, and often they come back to me and they said, oh, we put, this exercise into play with our team at work, and it like really gave us a new depth to what we were talking about, or it allowed us to think differently about something. And that's what I want. That's really my measurement of success.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. And are there any, personal things that you've been able, that you maybe didn't even realize about yourself, or that you had to face yourself because it was a topic that a group went down that you hadn't even considered before, that really has changed who you are and how you think and what your perspective is?
Yeah, the group has definitely taught me to be more intentional. And that's part of, I guess, the design of Frank itself is extremely intentional, but also to approach things in a purposeful manner. So, I get very excited about my ideas and I want to jump in and take over the world and just go at it. But, taking a second to say to yourself, like, what do I really want to get out of this? What is like the question that I want to answer, or what is the result that I want to derive? And then working backwards is a really good way to get rich outcomes and meaningful outcomes from your projects. And something else that I've been working on this past year personally is asking for what I need instead of making assumptions that other people can read my mind and, use their crystal ball and figure it out on their own. So trying to be very clear and to the point, and asking very specifically for what I need to help me in my personal life, in my business life. And so far it's made big improvements, I would say.
That's one of the most difficult ones, I think, is to, especially as a solopreneur and you're starting something else up, and especially if you were used to working in like a corporate team, and now you're in this more position of authority, that it's like, no, it all kind of falls on you. So you're the one that needs to make sure that everybody knows what you need and what the expectation is and where you're going and what the vision is, so that everybody can kind of be on board with you.
That's it. And, I think women tend to, they don't like to ask. They don't like to ask for things. They don't want to feel like an imposition or that they're putting too much pressure on someone. So they kind of tiptoe around some of the things that they really need. And, I encourage everyone to be more assertive and really just be specific and clear, because first of all, if you don't ask, you won't get it. And, don't leave it up to their imagination of how to help you. Just tell them what you need. Just do it.
Yep, exactly. And people are there to help you. They don't see you as being rude for asking for the things that they're.
No, most people love to help. Like they get so much joy out of helping others. So, it works on both sides.
Yeah, there's a TED Talk that we actually highlighted last fall, because the woman who gave the TED Talk, she was the first justice on the Supreme Court of Nebraska. She was also the aunt of a gentleman who is a huge supporter for Let Her Speak. He was actually part of the main reason why we had funding to get started in the first place. And her topic was talking about brownies versus essentially Boy Scouts or wolves, since most Cub Scouts are, wolf pack mentality. And she brought up exactly a little bit of what you were talking about, of the mindset of what a brownie teaches us is there were these mythical creatures that would come into, the cobbler's home and clean up everything and do the dishes and sweep the floor, but you never saw them, heard from them or anything. They just came in, helped you out, and then left quietly, never asking anything in return. And she talked about how that can really impact the mentality of what women have when they're growing up, to have that brownie mentality of like, no, we should be quiet. We shouldn't ask for anything. We shouldn't say anything. We should just go help all the people that we can possibly help and not expect anything in return. And I think it connects really well with exactly what you said.
Yeah, I agree. That's an interesting analogy, but very true. I don't know why women, I guess, through history, we've always been quieted, so to speak, but I do really think that now's the time to let our voices be heard, such as, the Let Her Speak mission, which I really, really love and connect with.
Yep, I agree. I think it's just I hear iterations of that over and over again, and it was just interesting for her to put it in that context of from the point of us, at least in the U.S., the Girl Scouts of America and the Boy Scouts of America, and the juxtaposition of them was really interesting. But I know that there's programs like that in most countries.
Yeah.
That you feel that oh, I should be meek and quiet versus loud and out there and asking and telling and things like that. So one question that I ask most women is, what at the end of the day, all of this work that you're doing and you're just getting started, but you've already come so far. What is the legacy and the story that you hope people will remember you by?
I think my mission is really attached to helping other women live their best life, whatever that means for them. Success for them might not mean, running an empire and having, hundreds and thousands of people under them and, hitting, crazy financial gains. I think success is always different. You can define it differently. And if I can help them achieve that, to feel more at peace with themselves, to help them sort of smooth out some rocky times, some rough times for them, because they have this amazing community that has their back, then I would be really proud.
Do you have any, thoughts or, some people have like words for the year, some people have goals for the year, or, points of encouragement or inspiration, but do you have anything like that you're using now that we're out of 2020, but 2021 is still going to be a very difficult year for the most part. So, are there anything that you could share with the community that's helping you carry through and continuing your mission?
Well, my phrase for this year, for 2021, is be bold. So I'm challenging myself, pushing myself to do things that I'm a little bit uncomfortable with, be it emailing, some, very prominent leader and asking, like engaging with them, that maybe I would have felt a bit shy to do last year. I'm kind of pushing myself to do it. I'm reaching out and making amazing connections that maybe I wouldn't have otherwise. And on the business side, I'm also, going after what I want. I don't want to think small this year. Last year was about pivoting and adapting and changing. And this year, I just want to push it. So I'm going to be bold.
I love that. There's a nonprofit that that's part of their is it's called Girls Inc. That I couldn't remember if they were in Canada too, but their phrase, part of their phrase is "be bold" too, and I've always loved that part of it. So I think that's great. That's definitely what we need in 2021 and on through. So how about you share with us? So you mentioned the website. Mm-hmm. But mention some of the different ways that people can connect with you and connect with the Frank community.
Sure. So again, our website is frank-talk.com. There you can find out information about our program and apply if you'd like to join us. In the next couple of weeks, in February, we're going to be launching our spring cohorts. So there's lots of interesting things happening, as well as our workshops that are coming up. You can connect with us on Instagram, and our handle is franktalk_global, Frank Talk Global. And we're on Facebook as well.
And I know you mentioned that this is open for most women, professional business women, entrepreneurial women. But have you found, any specific, you said that there should be a little bit later in their career, so 10 years or more under their belt. But are there any other, women that you find the most benefit out of being a part of your program?
I think it's really just about having this growth mindset and being ready to learn and also being ready to put yourself out there. So it's not, it's very, very interactive. And we ask a lot from our members in terms of their communication. Of course, not so much that anyone would feel uncomfortable, and we make sure that everyone is in a good space and a safe space and is sharing what they're ready to share. But you have to be ready to talk and connect. And, you know, as we previously discussed, it's really what you put in is what you get out. So if you're ready, if you have a challenge, something that seems maybe insurmountable and you want to, you know, find new ways around it, or if, you know, you're not feeling completely satisfied in your work life and you want to explore different avenues, you know, Frank is a great safe space to do so.
I love it, especially, yeah, if you're stepping out on your own for the first time, it is so pivotal to have a group, you know, essentially an advisory group around you to help you out, because otherwise you do just feel like you're on an island to yourself and you don't know who else to talk to except for yourself in the mirror sometimes.
I've been there.
Yeah, yeah, same. Or I talk to my dog, but she's not very helpful. So. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and sharing everything about Frank. I think it's an incredible program, and I'm to some degree, I am glad that the pandemic forced you to be more global, so that there's more women across the entire world that are able to benefit from it.
Yeah, thank you. And I really appreciate, like I said, your mission really, really resonates with me personally, and also my whole community here at Frank. And I'm excited to see what changes come in the next few years. I feel like women as a gender are, you know, on the cusp of something amazing. So if we can play a small role in it, then I think that's awesome.